100 cases of people who wandered into the wilderness but never came back. Accounts of children, people
was a coyote,
vanishing,
dog, or
seemingly
else.
swallowed up by the many endless forests across America, or even later found in ways that defy logic.
An animal.
Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
She described the way that the creature moved as being unnatural.
You've had problems in the neighborhood
It looked
before?
like it was
Yeah, my dog was
uncomfortable
killed here
in its
just
own
recently.
feet.
I don't know what it was. So whatever it was that was standing out there. I'm out here
It
looking
looked
through the
like
window
a
now and I don't
vehicle.
see anything.
She
I don't want to go
believed
outside.
that what she was looking at
Jesus
was
Christ,
pure
you better...
evil.
Sure.
Tia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9".
Do you see
The
him now,
cases of
sir?
about
Yes, I'm looking
100
right
people,
at him.
at least, who claim that they've been abducted
hang
by
on.
aliens.
He's
One
right.
of Dr. Matt's
Is he in your
patients,
yard,
Linda,
sir?
Yeah,
who
he's
says
gone.
she
He's
has been
big.
Faded out,
abducted
like
since childhood.
reality. I was just
what I remember
being brought up this tunnel of light, right? Out this tunnel light, just like noticed parts of my life that I wouldn't even occur to me to remember. Then I knew that I wasn't
I
in
never
my
told
body,
anybody
that I
about
was
that, and I just buried it in the back
And so
of my
then I
mind.
came to the end of this tunnel and noticed there was a man that first searched me at first as a
Mist
wizard.
or a
And
fog
I
kind
also
of
saw him
moving.
to set it
The
down.
action, the
That-
motion caught my
then
eye. It
the
actually
wizard,
started
without
taking
moving his
shape,
mouth,
taking
spoke to me and
form.
said,
The
"Struggle
idea of
with
the
you
Grim
to
Reaper
die."
went through my head, cloaked figure. And as I was watching, it kept becoming more and more and more distinct to me that this was actually something with some type of presence. Like it knew I was there. And as I was watching it, it turned and looked directly at me. I felt like whatever this was angry at me. I wasn't welcome. It wanted me out. I had been face to face with a ghost or a demon, a spirit. I'm not really sure what.
Hey guys, and welcome
This-
to
this
Real
feeling
Supernatural
of
Encounters. For
terror
my guest today,
actually
I
was
have
going
Annie,
through me.
and she's
And
going
I
to be telling
really
a few of
felt
her,
more
well,
that it was
her one big
demonic. It was
experience.
something very
And
evil.
before she gets to that, Annie, could you give a brief bio about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I just work mental health, but I had a hard time affording to go to get my master's. So I ended up joining the Army, and that is when this happened.
All right. All right, Annie. Well, when you're ready, go ahead and start with your story.
Okay, so there started out in basic. They had this ghost they called Private Jane, which was allegedly a person who had committed suicide in a previous cycle, which is a previous group of people that came through. And we just thought nothing of it for a long time. But then people started waking up with scratches all over their legs to the point where the drill sergeant started making us come down in our summer workout outfit called summer PTs. And so that they could see our legs with shorts on. And they were accusing us of self-harming and trying to get people to go seek mental health help sometimes. But people kept saying no because they didn't want to leave training. And no one was actually self-harming, but they were like animalistic scratches, you know, like your dog accidentally scratches you while playing or something. But obviously, you know, no dogs were around. And people were waking up at night feeling like something was grabbing their legs or their arms. And we just kind of chalked it up to the stress of training for a long time. But then there was a situation on something called Fire Guard. And that is when we get up for about an hour every night to pull security outside of the barracks and count how many people are in the room. And then the drill sergeants come up and make us do exercises in the middle of the night just to kind of add to the sleep deprivation. And there was a moment when there was a male stairwell right outside of where we were sleeping, and we weren't allowed in there, obviously being females. And my bunk was right next to the male stairwell, right by the door that went to the male stairwell. It was on the other side of my wall that I slept against. And I woke up to a giant crash bang and somebody screaming, "Get the F out." And I thought it was a drill sergeant. And so I laid there pretending to be asleep. And in comes one of my friends with looking all tense, and she's like shining a light on everybody and counting to make sure everybody's there. And I scare her saying, "Hey, is that a drill sergeant?" And she's like, "No, go back to sleep." Well, the next morning, she tells me that as they were sitting out at the desk, they see the door start slowly shaking, like someone was trying to mess with them. They thought it was a drill sergeant trying to scare them with this alleged Private Jane. And so they get all tense and ready, you know, for the drill sergeant to come in. But he doesn't come in. The door, which is locked, by the way, slams open outward toward whatever was shaking it, to the point where it hits the wall on the outside of the door. And it hits so hard that it wakes me up. And that's when the other soldier, Smith, she just screams, "Get the F out," and runs for dear life. And that's when my friend comes in and tells me to go back to sleep, and gets all scared when I sit up in bed and scare her. So I'm just like, wow, I never really dealt with supernatural before, so I was kind of skeptical when everyone was talking about this. And so that was the first like clue to me that this was a serious situation. Then there's a light sensor in the bathroom, right? And it senses motion when you walk in and turns on the light. And then if nobody's in there for a certain amount of time, it turns off. Yeah. So I was doing fire guard a couple of nights after this, probably about a week or two after this. And the door with the situation with the door. And I noticed that there's like this scraping noise on the ground in the bathroom. And we had already counted everybody. Everybody was asleep in bed. So, because that's the first thing you do every night. And so I kind of like look over at the door, and the person with me looks over at the door. And we are watching it, and then the crack underneath the door, we see the light turn on, and then the scraping stops. And so us, you know, being terrified, I kind of had to steel myself up a little bit, but I was like, I'm not going back to sleep without seeing what's on the other side of that door. So we go up and we push the door open, and the lights are still on, but there's nobody in the bathroom at all. And then when we closed the door, you know, there was nothing for the rest of the night that we know of. So we just continue on, you know, a couple more people talk about someone walking on the other side of the door, stuff like that. And we start having serious issues with people experiencing nightmares, where there was suicide involved. And people were trying to like overdose on medication, and it was more so than normal. Apparently suicide or attempts were normal for basic training, but the drill sergeant said that normally there's not this much of it. There was like 4 or 5 attempts during our cycle, mostly females from my barracks, like in our room of about 30 females. So that was pretty terrible. There was a couple ambulances called. None of them died, thank goodness. I'm still friends with quite a few of them. But the dreams were just terrible and nagging. And as soon as they did something like that, they got out of the Army a couple days later and got serious mental health help so that they could be safe, you know. So I went to something called OSUT, which was for military police and a couple other people like combat engineers, where we don't normally, you go through basic training that everybody knows about, and then you go to a job school where you actually learn your real job, and you usually change bases and change units for that. But for OSUT, we stay with the same drill sergeants. It's like instead of a 3-month basic training, you get 6 or 7 months of basic training. It's real fun. So we were cleaning up, and our boots were always muddy, and we always had to keep it clean. And I was sweeping the floor, and everyone was kind of half asleep or studying for the exam, the law exam that we were going to have, because, you know, military police, we had to learn law. So everyone was studying, and this one lady was laying down on the floor asleep, and because we weren't allowed to sit on the bunks or sleep on the bunks and during the day. And she's just laying there on her back and I'm sweeping the mud up. And then suddenly she gets dragged over halfway across the entire barracks room on her back, her legs flailing, like something just grabbed her and pulled her all the way across the room. And I was just like, holy cow. And everybody woke up or like started, well, I froze, but a lot of other people were like screaming. And so woke up the people. And yeah, that was pretty bad. She was like crying afterward. And at this point we were like, what's going on with this monster? So we thought it was still a ghost, but we still had to do fire guard, just not as frequently during the basic or during the job school called AIT, or advanced individual training. And during that fire guard, one of the skeptics, which is why I believe this story, one of the ones that were just like, no, let's not even talk about this. It's stupid. You guys are making things up. She was pulling a shift, and for about an hour that we did them. And down at the end of the hallway, she saw a shadow underneath the door, and it's like this long hallway in between two long barracks. So it's like long hallway, and on either side there's two long rooms, and that's where we sleep. And the hallway in the middle that she was standing in, there's a door on the other end that leads to another long hallway and two more long barracks on either side of that one. And then there's a door dividing the middle. So she was looking down that way, down this hallway, and something came through the door, not even opening it. And she said it was tall but slouched, and it had extremely long arms that the hands almost touched the ground. And it was bald and had no eyes, but kind of had a semi-human-like face. But it was very quick. She saw it step through the door, and then it turned and went into the first platoon's barracks where all these troubles were happening. And it was like, she said it was in less than a second. It just walked in and then was gone. And she like startled and stood up straight, where she was tired before. She just was startled and stood up straight like, holy cow, what was that? She went into the barracks, and it was dark, and she had her red flashlight on, but she couldn't see anything. There was nothing in there. And she counted everybody, and everyone was fine. So she went back, and she said she just, fell asleep like it was nothing, because at that point we were just all tired. And so after all of that happened, we actually had a trainee right before all of this bad stuff happened. She got recycled because she was injured her first time around. So she had to let herself heal. And then she came and joined us a couple of weeks into our cycle. And it turns out, we find out after that monster appeared and she was telling us about it, that girl came out and admitted that she actually regularly summons demons, and that she had summoned a couple of demons actually in the amount of time that she was there. And so we were just like, actually, we were all pretty mad at her. Like, why would you do that while you're here? We already have enough troubles as is, but we weren't too mad. But at the same time, we were very upset because of all the struggles that we went through, especially with the people trying to commit suicide, and how that had affected their lives. And so that sounded like a decent explanation, and apparently she stopped doing it. But by the time all this came to light, we were done training. So we kind of just left.
Okay. All right. Well, I have tons of questions for you, if you're ready.
Yeah.
How long ago did these marks on people start happening?
Okay, so I'm looking at a calendar right here, or I kept notes through all of basic training on everything that happened in the days.
Nice.
So the marks started happening around the time we did the rappel tower, which was actually November 5th of 2019. So that was when they started, around there anyway. I don't remember the exact date that they started because people really didn't talk about it. They were trying to hide the fact that they were getting marks because they were scared of getting kicked out for self-harming, and
Yeah.
they weren't actually self-harming.
How long ago did your friend start basic training with you that summon demons?
I don't know when she actually made it because, to be honest with you, the first little bit of basic training is all kind of a blur. No one really pays attention to anyone's faces. We're all just kind of trying to make it through the first
Yeah.
couple of weeks. So I know that she joined sometime in those first couple of weeks, but because it was pretty early that she got there, but I don't know when.
Okay. Do you think there's more than just one entity then? I mean, besides her saying that she's summoned more than one demon, do you think that the spirit, like there's different spirits, the ones that are making the door slam, the one that pulled the girl by her hair while she's on her back, you
Oh,
know,
she just
just
got pulled, not by her hair. But yeah,
okay.
no, I'm not sure. It's hard to say because most of them weren't visible. And even the one that was, it was so quick. But yeah, no, the only reason I even believe it is because, for one, I woke up to the slamming,
Yeah.
and for two, the person that screamed "Get the F out," she was this like chill lady from the Bronx. Nothing really bothered her. Everything just kind of was water under a bridge. And then she's like freaked out and actually saying this was a legit thing. And so it might have been more than one, but we wouldn't know because most of them we couldn't see.
Yeah.
You know.
So the one that you nicknamed Private Jane could have been all these and a demon.
Yeah. Well, that's
Okay.
just something the drill started saying. they were saying that it was because we were doing the wrong thing. And so Private Jane was coming out because we were not properly squared away and all of that wonderful stuff. And really, it wasn't that at all.
Okay. When you first experienced this big bang from the door slamming open, how did you feel, or what did you think?
I thought it was a drill sergeant. So
Mhm.
I was just kind of tense and pretending to be asleep.
Yeah.
When I heard that it wasn't a drill sergeant and there was no way anyone could have been standing on the other side of that door when it slammed open like that, because it would have hit their actual body, that's when I kind of got like a bit of a shiver, like my hair stood on end.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest with you, so much was happening at that time that it kind of was minor in comparison to the rest of the stuff we were dealing with. So it
Okay.
freaked me out for sure, but because of the intensity that basic training can be, it kind of got swept under the rug until the dragging incident, when everybody witnessed it. That's when it started really, the pieces started fitting together.
Was when she got dragged, what time was it? Like what time of day was it? Was it nighttime or daytime?
Oh, it was daytime. It was like middle of the day on a Sunday because we were all just kind of relaxing, and we got
Yeah.
Sundays mostly off. We would just clean things and then we would study. So it was middle of the day on Sunday.
Wow, even on a Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. And in the middle of the daytime too. I remember after that dragging situation, when they called us downstairs to go outside and do some area beautification, is what they called it, when we'd basically go outside and pick up leaves and stand around and make it look like we were doing stuff because there was nothing to do.
Yeah.
I remember going outside and realizing like birds were chirping and it was a bright sunny day, and just thinking like, what the heck? It
Yeah.
feels like it shouldn't be bright and sunny after that situation.
That is crazy. That is a pretty amazing story. Did the drill sergeant ever come into the room at any time, hearing all these different noises? Did he or she ever hear anything
See,
themselves?
that's the crazy thing. That door, the male stairwell door,
Yeah.
it was locked, yes, but it also had an alarm on it. So like if somebody happened to somehow open the door, that's what we were kind of scared of, and what
Yeah.
like they were all trying to say, like, if the door is really going to slam open, then the alarm should have gone off.
Yeah.
And the drill sergeant should have come rampaging up, like, why are the females going in the male stairwell? So, or vice versa, males into the female barracks, you know?
Yeah.
So then we were all scared a little bit that they were going to get at us the next morning, that they were like reserving their wrath for the next day. And that never happened. So we didn't say anything to them. We didn't give it away because we weren't going to get in trouble for nothing. But yeah, we were weirded out that the alarm didn't sound on the door, because it was a silent alarm. It would have only gone off in the drill sergeant's kind of office area. We wouldn't have known.
What kind of punishment do you think you would have got for pretty much going a lot? Like, what would they have you guys do if you went to the male stairwell?
So they would have probably lined us up in formation outside, and there's over 200 people in that company when we were training. And they would have formed us up, and they would have been very facetious about something happening. And they would have before starting all that, they would have put us in something called the front leaning rest, which is basically like if you're down on the ground and you're about to start doing a push-up, but your arms are still straight. That's the front leaning quote unquote rest. They'll joke about it being a rest position, but really you're like on the ground in gravel, most likely. So your hands are getting cut up. If they were mad enough, which if someone had actually gone between barracks, they would have been mad enough for this. They would not have done something called open ranks march, where you separate the ranks. So there's like 4 rows of people, and then you step forward or backwards depending on which row you're in, and so that there's like a bigger gap. And then when you go down into the front leaning rest, you kick your feet backwards, and then the person in front of you is liable to step on or push and your hand on the ground when they kick their feet backwards and your hand is right behind them. And I've actually had several large cuts that didn't heal for months because we would keep going down in the gravel.
Yeah.
And so it would reopen the cut because of when the drill sergeants were super mad and they wouldn't tell us to open ranks, and the person in front of me kicking backwards, they would try to be careful. But if you don't kick backwards properly, you'll get harassed by the drill sergeants for not doing the proper movement, even if you're just doing it to try to prevent hurting the person behind you. So yeah, that they would have probably put us like that for at least an hour and lectured us about harassment. And then we would have had to probably go through another SHARP meeting, which is sexual harassment response prevention. And that would have been probably about 2, maybe 3 hours long to talk about sexual harassment because of a male entering a female barracks kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Oh man, it would have been a very fun time.
That would be scary if that, obviously happened. My question would be, have you ever heard the alarm go off before to know that it was working, or it had batteries in it, or whatever it was that whatever kind of alarm it was?
My knowledge of that alarm actually came from a little bit later. We didn't even know there was an alarm there until later, when I was a holdover, because I also got a little bit injured and I was waiting after training to go to my unit because I got delayed. So they had to do some paperwork and stuff. So then I found out about that alarm after all of that, but we didn't know at the time that there even was an alarm. We just kind of figured because we saw a sensor above the door, and some people who were a little bit more knowledgeable about that because of their careers outside of the Army said that that looked like a silent alarm, but it was just a guess. We weren't actually 100% sure. And when the drill sergeants didn't do anything and didn't seem to even know it happened, we just kind of guessed maybe it wasn't an alarm. But later on, I found it actually was. And that's when I was like, huh, that should have gone off.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Why do you think suicide attempts were so normal there?
It was really whenever they kind of were more, I guess, present afterward, after some time in some place we called Fort Charlie, which was kind of the mental health area on base. They came back and they would say that what led them to it were these dreams where there was this voice in the dream just whispering all of these horrible things about them and how they don't deserve to live. And a lot of this stuff was somewhat true, based in reality. And they would like be seeing all these things that they did, all these mistakes they made, and it would just kind of like almost over exaggerate the severity of
Yeah.
what they did. Or sometimes with some people, depending on how bad the mistakes were, it wasn't over exaggerating the severity, but when it really hit home, they were trying to kill themselves afterward because they honestly believed that they didn't deserve to live. And it happened 4 times in the similar fashion. And that's why I think that it was these monsters or that one monster, who knows?
How, if it's okay to say, how did they try to take their lives?
Through various ways, some more successful. One of them, and she got out like 2 days after getting back from Fort Charlie. For her own safety because of the stress of the environment that we were in. Anytime the drill sergeant started yelling at us, she would freak out. So she tried to she hoarded medicine. Like sometimes they would give us sleeping medicine or ibuprofen, and she hoarded muscle relaxers and sleeping medicine and took several containers of it all at once.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm not sure on how close she actually was to succeeding because I'm not sure about the logistics of that. All I know is that when we tried to wake her up for fire guard and she didn't wake up, and when we tried to like push her and stuff, I wasn't the one waking her up. But we tried to move her and like get her to wake up, but she wouldn't move at all.
Yeah.
We were all terrified and went and told the drill sergeants, and then an ambulance came and got her. And they said that it was a really close thing, but I'm not sure how close. Because I do know that your body kind of like it processes it, but sometimes it just, pushes it straight through and doesn't process it if it's overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure how close it actually was, but she was not waking up. So
Okay.
we were all pretty scared of that one, especially. The others were like sitting in a window, and but it was the second floor. And we were all gone. And normally in basic, you're not supposed to be alone. You have to have this thing called a battle buddy at all times for your safety to prevent sexual harassment and stuff like that in an environment where the drill sergeants are in so much power and control that sometimes there's a lot of Stockholm syndrome involved. So to prevent a bad person from, using that to their advantage, you have to be with a buddy at all times. But she was by herself, and somebody just happened to walk into the room right before she said she was actually about to go. And the person like literally tackled her back because they saw her sitting in the window and she hadn't noticed them yet. And then the person like grabbed her and pulled her back and like without even trying to talk to her, just getting her safe.
Wow. You mentioned that you guys would have these nightmares or these really bad dreams. Can you tell me what kind of dreams you had?
I didn't really have any dreams myself. I did wake up a couple of times thinking someone was grabbing my foot, but I had a couple of scratches too, but it wasn't really that bad on me. Most of my experience was seeing other people's scratches and hearing them talk about their dreams and stuff like that. Because we were able, as training went on, we had a little bit more free time here and there. And so we would talk about the dreams and stuff and confide in each other. about some of the more intense feelings that we had. And I mostly did the listening role because, to be honest with you, everything that happened there, I was just kind of managing it. It didn't really hurt me too much or affect me too much. It just kind of was. It just kind of
Yeah.
happened. And then whenever people were talking about their dreams, I was kind of using my ability and my skills with mental health to try to kind of counsel them through it with questions that help them understand that on their own, that the dreams were not something to be heeded, that everybody has evil sides inside of them, and it's really what you allow to come out.
Yeah.
So they that kind of helped them a lot of them, because we only ended up with the 4 attempts. There is more people than just those 4 people having these dreams. So
Okay. Did they ever
definitely, huh?
did they ever
Yeah.
mention any type of being or monster or anything when they told you these dreams?
Some of them said that it was like a monster sounding voice, like evil almost, or like some of them said when it was whispering, it wasn't really even a language. It was just like gibberish, but somehow it made them have feelings or recall memories that were very negative about their past, about things that they did. So it wasn't even, it was like the fact that it just felt like a monster, but none of them really saw it. Their dreams were like memories being recalled. But then the monster like sound was whispering during the dream.
That's scary. That's pretty terrifying. Um, you mentioned that you guys aren't allowed to sleep on the bunks. Why is that?
Oh, during the day, that's just kind of a discipline thing, I guess. Trying to get us to have some discipline with staying awake. So we weren't allowed to sit on the bunks, sleep on the bunks. Of course, we still did it sometimes. But we had to make up the bed every morning, and it had to be perfect throughout the day. So of course, sitting on it or sleeping on it would mess up the covers and even when we slept, honestly, we didn't sleep under the covers unless it was laundry time the next day, because we didn't have enough time in the morning to make the whole bed.
Mhm.
So we would just sleep under the top blanket, and then just every morning we just straighten it up and make up the top blanket in the morning.
That's smart. Um, now the girl, you said that she got dragged. How far did she get dragged for?
Oh gosh. It had to have been at least 10 feet. Each square on the floor was 1 foot. So no, it was more than 10 feet, because she was sitting in the middle of the room. And like I said, each barracks had 30 people, and there's that long hallway in the middle, and on
Yeah.
either side was a long room. Each room was probably about 40 feet long or so, maybe a little longer. And she got dragged about halfway through the room. She was sitting by the pole, or sorry, laying by the pole in the middle. So it was about halfway, or a little over 20 feet, I guess.
Was she fighting or anything? Fighting to try to
Yeah,
like get out?
her legs were kicking, and her arms were flailing a little bit, but her arms were mostly like grabbing at the ground, trying to stop the motion. Yeah, and she was like pushing down on the ground a little bit with her foot, like she was trying to stop it and like
Mhm.
slamming her foot down on the ground. But for the most part, her legs were in the air. And she was being pulled backwards, and you would have been able to tell if she was pushing with her leg to go back further. But
Mhm.
she was like, when her feet did touch the ground, they were like slamming down, like she was trying to stop the motion somehow.
Yeah. And so she was getting pulled by her hair.
No, there was nothing on her that moved. That was what was weird. Like, she was in uniform and stuff, right? And
Yeah.
normally if you grab somebody by like the back of their uniform, the uniform itself would move a little bit,
Yeah.
like something was grabbing at it. But it was almost, and there was no handprints, where like as if an invisible hand was denting in on her clothes or anything
Yeah.
like that. It just
Hmm.
moved her. Like as if it was some kind of superhero movie where the person just gets pulled along the ground
Yeah.
because the ground itself was moving or something. You know, it was just weird.
What
As
did
if,
she ever? Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was saying kind of as if she was blown backwards, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea how to explain it.
So, what she was obviously asleep, right? So, when she finally stopped and everything, who did she think was doing this, or what did she think was happening?
She didn't even really talk
Wow.
afterward, because she was just like, she kind of jumped to her feet and then ran to the the latrine, the bathroom. And so she just, and then we all, of course, like a couple of us that knew her a little better, followed her. Like, is she okay? What's she gonna do in there? Because we already had a couple of suicide attempts, so we weren't about to have that happen again.
Mhm.
And she was just in there crying, and she didn't know. She didn't hear anything. She didn't, other than being dragged, that part. She didn't feel anything. She said at first she thought one of us were messing with her
Yeah.
when she got a little bit more, I guess, verbal. She thought one of us was messing with her. Because when she was screaming stop, and then she was also just screaming. But she said she didn't know what it was. Nothing. She wasn't even having, I asked her if she was having one of the nightmares when she was asleep. She said
Yeah.
no. It was just like as if, you know, we were all exhausted, right?
Mm.
You can fall asleep anytime, anywhere. You can fall asleep standing up sometimes. You're so exhausted. And so she was just dead asleep, no dreams, no nothing, and then just woke up to that. So
Man. What do you think this creature is or was? Even though we knew that, you know, you guys had a person there that was summoning demons, do you have like an idea what kind of creature it could be?
I honestly believe it was a demon. I believe in different classes of demon, and I did before this event too. I just never actually had an experience with one.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a demon haunting us for the reason of the girl summoning it. We all asked her why she summoned it, and she didn't give us a real, well, if you could call it a real explanation. Her explanation was, it's my religion. Which we were still upset at her because she continued to do it even when people were committing suicide and or trying to, you know, and she didn't try to stop for their sake or anything. So that's why we were upset at her. Not that she was practicing her belief, but that she was doing it despite the fact that she knew other people were getting hurt and that it
Yeah.
could be potentially because of what she was doing.
Yeah.
So.
It's so freaking dangerous. And yet, did she ever say anything that was happening to her?
No. We asked her too. We were like, did have you, because we noticed that she didn't have scratches on her at that point. So we knew she wasn't getting scratched, but we asked her if she was having nightmares or anything at all, and she just wouldn't say. She just got annoyed with us and changed the topic.
Almost makes you wonder. Maybe there's something that she ain't saying. You know, the way you describe the creature, it almost sounds like the Wendigo. With the long arms. What color did you say? It was white or anything?
It was black. She
Black.
said it was a shadow.
Shadow. Okay.
Yeah, but it was such a quick thing. What got her was that it stepped through the door into a completely lit hallway. It wasn't dark. So the barrack rooms were dark because we were sleeping, but the hallways lights were always turned on, and there was no windows or anything. So they were always turned on even during the day. And so it was a completely lit hallway, and it just stepped through the door in the hallway and then turned and went into our barrack. So
That would have been a sight to see.
yeah. I'm a little jealous of her, but at the same time, I'm like, no, I'd rather not. I had my experience with it in the bathroom, and I was okay with not seeing it after that.
Now, well, your friend that was a skeptic, is she a believer now?
She believes that it was a monster. for sure. She doesn't like to talk about it. Every time she looks at me or every time I mention it as kind of a joke, she's like, shut up. We just kind of laugh about it now, but as long as I don't mention it too late at night, she doesn't get upset at me.
All right. Well, Annie, you've answered all my questions. Before we close this, would you like to give the closing comments or advice to anybody that could have experienced a similar thing or anything like that?
Don't mess with Ouija boards. And if you do experience something like this, and you're stuck in an environment where you can't move, like we got to leave eventually, right? Just don't continue. Try to figure out if anyone is actually doing something to bring it there, and then get them to stop. I don't know if it's too late at some point or what, but getting away from that location is probably the best option, because I don't know of any way to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, Annie, I appreciate you for taking the time out of your day to come on and tell your story. Thank you so much. I very enjoyed it. And other than that, guys, it's been another episode of Real Supernatural Encounters. We'll see you guys later. See you later, Annie.
Bye.